And hey there, hi there, ho there, and a gracious good Saturday morning to you. Welcome back to another exciting edition of the Cardinal Couple Radio Hour podcast, where we discuss the joy and excitement of UofL women's athletics. Certainly a lot of exciting things that happened yesterday for the Cardinal women's fall sports teams, and just a kind of a good week all overall, really. As we'll discuss all that for you, we have a foursome in the house with you today. Daryl has got early bats duty today down by the river, so she won't be with us. But Case, Jared, Jeff, and myself, Polly, are in here to take you through this next hour discussing the things that have been transpiring with our U of L women's sports squads. As yesterday was a big day, as Case kind of punned in his article today at cardinalcouple.com. The Cards getting 2 wins and a draw against Big Ten opponents. So certainly good for them, and a lot of good things happening, especially for volleyball. Pulled a very nice upset, but we'll get into all that just a little bit later. As we like to do at the start of the show, kind of catch up with the guys. Joining us from our Hilton Garden Inn remote location that we've contracted. No, we're kidding. That's where Jeff is staying while he's up in Cincinnati, up at Xavier, watching volleyball. Jeff is with us there. So, did you get to do the breakfast buffet before you get on the air? I mean, how did that work out?
They do have a breakfast in the hotel. It's not a buffet, but it's not included in the cost of the room, which whatever. But yeah, I had a nice breakfast, which is actually something I don't normally do in my day-to-day routine. So it's kind of a pleasant change of pace.
Outstanding, outstanding. Glad to hear that all is going well up there and up in the Cintas Arena. Listeners may remember that as being the venue several years ago for a big Louisville women's basketball win up there. When I think we were in the regionals, maybe Jeff, I can't remember what it was, but we went up
Yes,
against.
pre-regionals,
Yeah,
sub-regionals, yeah.
yeah, sub regionals went up against a very talented Xavier team, and thanks to Miss Schimmel and company, we kind of wiped the floor with them up there. A big upset for them, obviously, but that's a cool little arena in there too, as well.
It is. It's a big arena for volleyball. It's probably a little small for some of the basketball games, particularly men's basketball that they also host there. But yeah, it's pleasant. It's easy in and out, comfortable. Nice seats. The first few rows of seats are really comfortable, cushiony. They're pretty nice, really.
Is indeed, and I think when I was up there, I got to sit on media row down there, which was kind of basically, let's throw up this table, unfold the legs on it, and throw a white cover over it. There you go. You're on media row. Okay, thank you. But I had fun up there. When I was up there, I know you're having a good time too with the Cards win up there yesterday for sure.
Absolutely, it was a fun match to watch. More about that as we talk about it later.
Jared Anderson with us. He's got his feet in Epsom salts and hot water right now after running amok on the Belknap campus yesterday up and down Floyd Street, covering not only women's soccer but also field hockey. Jared did a nice post-game interview with Coach Sauer as well. Jared, how are the legs? Are you getting back into kind of maybe shape to kind of rest it up here today and go to football?
Well, thankfully, those scooters on campus can be a lifesaver. I think they're like $1 to start and just a few cents every minute. So, a quick 2-minute scooter drive down Floyd Street from Lynn to Traeger and back and forth and whatnot. Just a few bucks, but worth it. Saving my legs a lot of trouble. But even then, just being up on my feet all day was quite tough. Hips and knees and back and neck and everything's a little sore. So I'm glad we have a night game. So I'm using today as a recovery and finish all the photos from 3 different games yesterday.
Yeah, certainly a very, very busy day for you. I was wearing out the internet as well, jumping back and forth, trying to keep up with both field hockey and women's soccer at the same time. And it's not like every time I'd switch over to watch the other, a big play would happen on the one I left. So that's just the way luck goes. Case Hoskins in the house with us today as well. He wrote today's article at cardinalcouple.com. Make sure and read Case's recap on the 3 activities that took place yesterday and Case was telling me that he was listening to one of the contests while at the sushi bar. That that just creates an image in my mind I can't quite get rid of. But go ahead on that one, Case. You had fun yesterday, huh?
Yeah, they do these in the middle of the workday kind of events on a weekday, and you kind of get messed up there. So wasn't able to get down to campus for the soccer game. Tried to listen to it in the car. Most soccer announcers, commentators are not like baseball announcers, where they recognize that you may just have the TV on and aren't watching it, so they'll kind of play by play the entire game. Soccer, not so much. They kind of expect you to be watching it, so that didn't really help me. Had to turn that off. Was able to put it on. We went down to Sapporo last night. Lindsay and I celebrate a little bit, just a little bit of celebration, and put the phone up in front of us on the sushi bar and watch the last 10 minutes of that chaotic Louisville and Michigan overtime.
That's for sure. As the Cards definitely had a struggle with a very good Big Ten team, but they held their measure against them. They created the tie, and ties are better than losing. They're not as good as winning. But you got to wonder, field hockey at least has a end result for that. If you go through a couple of overtimes in field hockey and nobody's still winning, then you go to the shootout, the penalty shootout, right, or the actual player shootout, or it's one on one against the goalkeeper. Soccer does not do that, I believe, until you get into like playoff or tournament or NCAA time, if I'm correct, sir.
Yeah, no shootouts until tournament time. And as I've said many times, my biggest problem with the um, college soccer is not that they go into overtime and then can still tie at the end. Like I'd be fine with that. It's that it's a golden goal overtime. So
Right.
it's just I hate that format. I'm not a big fan of it. Um, when you look at upper level soccer, international soccer, particularly when they play a golden goal overtime, it's because there's no tie after that. If it's golden goal and you don't are still tied, you're going to go to a shootout. So I don't like the concept of, well, all we need is one lucky goal and then the other team doesn't get a chance to still get a draw out of it. So
You get some interesting results in at least in the NWSL, for example. Like if you go back a week or two ago with the Women's Cup when Racing Louisville played Chicago.
yeah,
Was it Chicago?
they played
That
Chicago and then they played
yeah,
Bayern.
full time against the Chicago game was a tie. So in the NWSL record, it goes into the books as a draw. But they went ahead and did overtime and penalty kicks in order to figure out what to do for the Women's Cup. Was is interesting. So you have some weird things like that happen.
Yeah, that was such a cool concept that they did where
Yeah.
they incorporated a league match
Yeah.
into what was effectively a, you know,
An
commercial
international cup.
exhibition.
Yeah.
Like, it was a commercial exhibition between
Right.
four teams. And you're able to incorporate a league match into that. Um, like you mentioned, you get that cool draw out of it.
Yeah.
Louisville probably would have liked 3 points instead of just one in the table. But it's still pretty neat the way they did that.
Yep.
Indeed, it was. As for me this past week, been busy doing a variety of things. Certainly had a lot of fun on Sunday, the day after last week's broadcast, watching both some very, very good women's soccer, field hockey, and volleyball. As the Cards took on Northern Kentucky in volleyball. And then later on in the week, it was the start of Kentucky Downs horse racing, that scenic little boutique track down there on the Kentucky Tennessee border where they run only on the grass. There are no dirt races. And certainly bringing in a colony of some of the best jockeys, trainers, horses, and owners in the nation coming in to compete down there. It's just so much fun to watch. I admit it did take up a lot of my time that I would otherwise devote toward women's sports. That's okay. Give me a buy on that, guys. Horse racing. And it was a profitable watching as well. So we always like that when that happens. Time of the show where we normally get into a little scheduling and Twitter information. So we will turn that on over to Case and tell us what's happening, buddy.
Yeah, like we've mentioned a couple of weeks here, the schedule is starting to get more full. All the fall sports are officially in action now, and it's only a month and a half or so until we start to see some winter sports hit the schedule as well. So for today, men's golf is in Scottsdale still at the Maui Gym Invitational. Um, so that they're ongoing with that. I think they had a player shoot a 66 yesterday, so a pretty good start for some of them. Volleyball, like we've mentioned, is taking on hosting Xavier tonight in Cincinnati at 6:30. That one's on Flow TV. That's a pay-per-view site. You could alternatively just, I guess, drive up to Cincinnati, make the 1.5 hour trip up there to watch that one in person. Probably be just as cheap as paying for one game on Flow TV.
Yeah, cheaper in fact because they didn't actually have tickets out yesterday, so we got in for free. So
there you go.
yeah, I don't know if that's be the case today, but yeah, it's only an hour and a half. Come up and join me. I'll be here.
Yeah, you pay less in gas than you would for that Flow TV trial or whatever. Football taking on Eastern Kentucky, their first home game in Cardinal Stadium. There's officially a new Papa in town in Cardinal Stadium, by the way. Papa Murphy's is the new concession stand pizza.
Yeah, interesting stuff there. Yes, Papa John's kind of got shown the door here.
Yeah.
Do you have to bake your own though?
Yeah, you gotta buy it, and then you have to take it out into the parking lot and just hope that the sun has baked the asphalt enough to.
That's gonna be messy, especially if they set up these baking booths next to the beer booths. I foresee disaster here.
Would that mean that it's stone baked pizza then?
A little chemical for my taste.
Add a little beer to that thing. Yeah. Papa Murphy's though should be interesting. I doubt I'll partake in a piece while at the game today, but certainly, it's a good pizza. I've had Papa Murphy's many a time.
Yep, that one is at 7 p.m. So a night game in a rare night game in a preseason, well, in a non-conference game like this. Taking on Eastern Kentucky. That one is on ACC Network Extra. So really a lot of love for the Louisville football team tonight. Men's golf continues. The Maui Gym Collegiate Invitational tomorrow. Softball has a fall match or fall game, in September.
An exhibition,
that's about the last month that you could play softball in the city of Louisville, I think. They're taking on Eastern Kentucky. That one is in Richmond, though. That one's at 1 p.m. Field hockey gets no rest for the wicked. They're taking on number 11 Liberty tomorrow in Traeger Stadium. That one's at 1 p.m. and will be on the ACC Network Extra. Women's golf taking on Michigan on Monday and Tuesday in the Wolverine Invitational up in Ann Arbor. And volleyball with their Battle of the Bluegrass should be a top 10 matchup, we think, as long as Louisville can take care of business tonight. Does Kentucky play again this weekend, Jeff?
Yes.
So as long as both teams take care of business
tonight.
Which Marquette.
Don't overlook Marquette.
Yeah, that could be.
Yeah.
A couple of private Catholic schools.
Right? Kentucky may not be a top 10 team on Monday
if they can't get it done. But yeah, both teams taking on a couple of private Catholic schools today, and then they'll meet on Wednesday at 7 p.m. That one is in the L&N Federal Credit Union Arena. There's no video listed, but I have to assume that's at least on ACC Network Extra, if not the true ACC Network on a random Wednesday night in the fall. Everyone is off on Thursday, and Friday, men's tennis starts their season in Murfreesboro at the Middle Tennessee State University Invitational. Field hockey starts ACC play when they take on Virginia in Traeger Stadium at 3 p.m. Men's soccer and women's soccer both get their ACC season started at 7 p.m. Men are at Syracuse, women are at Miami. Both of those games probably on ACC Network Extra. And then football with a Friday night game to wrap up their third game in, 12 days when they take on UCF in Cardinal Stadium at 7:30 p.m. That will be on ESPN. That gets you through the week.
Kentucky versus Louisville in volleyball is apparently on ESPNU.
Hey-oh. Well,
yeah.
Linear channel. Look out.
We're moving up now. Here we go, boys. How about that on the U?
Yep.
It'll be interesting to see if Sean Moth handles the call on that one as well.
If you aren't able to make it into the Federal Credit Union Arena for that one. I believe it sold out about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, they were calling it standing room only. So
Yeah, and if you are not able to watch that one on ESPNU, you can always follow along on Twitter. UofL Volleyball Twitter does a great job.
Yeah.
I think one of the best Louisville sports social medias there are. They do a great job of keeping you up with the action. Definitely one of the best social medias for the live action sports. Not like what's the word I'm looking for? Track and field or cross country or swimming where they're getting results in late. You can always find that on the right side of the Cardinal Couple site in our Twitter list. I tweet is at best case scenario, BST case scenario. Paulie is at Cardinal Couple. He had some tweets for you last night. I believe you were at soccer, right, Paul? Not field hockey?
I was following both soccer and field hockey. I didn't make it to either event, but was watching on the ACC Network Extra and kind of bouncing between those two events down on Floyd Street, and then trying to keep an eye out for volleyball, but I couldn't get as much volleyball information as I wanted. But still, certainly was enjoying what I was watching. Watching a very, very good women's soccer team play a great Michigan team, and then, of course, watching field hockey get that early goal and take it.
Yeah, so you didn't get any train tweets last night, I don't think. I did see
I
one.
did actually tweet out a couple of them. Yeah,
I saw one in the last overtime period. So a little extra train for you there.
there was a
Good for always good
westbound
for the
and an
over.
eastbound.
Yeah, when you
Westbound
go to
and an
overtime,
eastbound.
always
There you
good
go.
for the over.
Hey.
Jared, sorry, Paul, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Jared tweets is at Mr. Anderson. Jared, Jeff is at Card Couple Radio and at Jeff McAdams, and Daryl is at Daryl Faust 4. So made it through.
There it is, and then did it before 11:20. So certainly a good run on that.
Schedule's getting longer. It's getting a lot more like the old radio days when it took a third of the show to get through scheduling in Twitter.
Yeah, for sure. It may come to the point where you may have to start dropping some men's activities in there just to get it done in time, but
May need to soon.
we'll see how it works out. As for that, yesterday it was Big Ten Day for the University of Louisville sports squads as they took on Big Ten opponents in both field hockey, women's soccer, and volleyball with a win, 2 wins, and 1 draw as the Cards took to the action not only on Floyd Street, but also up, as we mentioned, in Cincinnati, Ohio for their volleyball match. And we'll go ahead and I think maybe the biggest upset of the three was Louisville at number 10 in the nation, knocking off a very good number 6 team in Purdue in straight sets, which was a bit of a surprise for me. I think it's probably others as well. The Cards winning those first 2 sets 25-19 and then 25-16, which was very impressive to me. They led 20-15 in that third set. Purdue came back, fought it up a little bit, got within a couple, and then ended up to get the Cards to a 21-19 situation. But Louisville ending up getting the win 25-21. So a nice straight set sweep for Louisville volleyball up there. Our own Jeff McAdams was up there watching the action, leading the cheers. So, buddy, you up there and got to see some quality volleyball and a nice win.
yeah, absolutely. It was quite a game. It was a lot of fun to watch. Oh my goodness, it was a fun match to watch. Now, let me acknowledge my bias. I love watching a good blocking team. I love blocking. It's a lot of fun to watch, I think. And Louisville was a very good blocking team yesterday, with 12 blocks in a 3-set match. At a pace of 4 blocks per set is really an impressive pace. As Case mentioned in his article after I corrected my head fake, that pace would be an NCAA record if they could maintain that for the season. The NCAA does not currently have in their record books individual match records for blocking. Supposedly, we have a note in there that they're still doing research back in the blocking to figure that out. So it'll be interesting to see where that stands. So. But yeah, it was a whole lot of fun to watch. Louisville was wearing their Muhammad Ali inspired jerseys, and it's appropriate because they came out and they kind of punched Purdue in the face right out of the gate. I think Purdue may have come in a little overconfident on this match, but Louisville came out. They started putting up these incredible blocks and some strong swings, some great digging and passing. Elena Scott did a wonderful job as in the libero role. And yeah, I think Purdue just kind of got rocked back on their heels and never really fully recovered from that. It was man, it was fun, high paced, energetic, a lot of fun.
The usual suspects, as we like to call them sometimes on the volley guard squad, showed up in force. Certainly the A team was there. Anna DeBeer having a very nice match. Anna Stevenson as well, doing quite well. Maya Tillman played really, really well from what I could tell and what I could read on the match. Maybe, I don't know, Case, this is a team that is solid. It brings back a lot of people from last year, and they're definitely showing that they can hang with the top 10 in the nation.
Yeah, absolutely. Purdue brought back a lot of players, a fairly veteran team, of course, fantastically coached, and Dave Shondel's their head coach. Louisville came back with basically the whole starting lineup other than Libero, and we've had an incredibly great Libero come in, shock everybody, going, "Hey, wait, we've got a fantastic new Libero. This is fantastic." Um, so yeah, Purdue plays a style of game. They play that classic Big Ten, and it would be even more classic in the Big 12, but they play the classic Big Ten style of powerful, big, tall, powerful, but not very quick, which gives us time to get our blocking in place. We struggled. I contrast it with how we played against Northern Kentucky, the previous match on Sunday last weekend. That we struggled with Northern Kentucky because they played so quick. The tallest player in Northern Kentucky's team 6'1". They're a fairly short team. They have to play quick to have a chance to play against top teams, and they do, and they did a really good job of it, and we really struggled with it. You saw it in our blocking stats. Purdue is the opposite of that: big, strong, powerful, but slow. And Maya Tillman and Anna Stevenson were sitting there ready in the middle, able to move out to the pins, joining Anna DeBeer, Ika Jones, Nina Mbono for most of the time. In putting up big blocks out there. Tori Dilford got in on a bunch as well. They play a style of play that works well for a team like Louisville that is a good blocking team, and we are a very good blocking team.
Not being affiliated with a Power 5 conference, Xavier obviously doesn't have quite all the things at their hands like some of the other teams that are up there would, as far as showing this one on the internet. Of course, Flow Volleyball picked it up. You had to put down an arm and a leg in your firstborn child to watch that if you wanted to. So I was trying to follow things a little bit through Twitter, as I think the rest of us were. But Jarrett, you've got to love the way that this Cardinal team jumped out early, took some leads, weathered the storm, and took them in straight sets.
Yeah, going up against a top 10, almost a top 5 opponent like that, and even though it's a neutral site, it kind of always has that feel of a road game. But you want to make your statement early and put the pressure on them, so it kind of helps build your momentum going forward. And I think that's exactly what they did with that first set, and then really going into halftime, kind of running away with that second set. That it allowed them to take the pressure off themselves and kind of scoot it over there onto Purdue, and it really worked out with the sweep there, and then plenty of time to go on and recover and rest before they have to play again tonight with Xavier.
Case, this is a big win for Louisville. They'll go up next against home-standing Xavier, who admittedly had some trouble with Lipscomb in the other match that was up in the Centos Center, taking it to an actual 5-set match before they were able to get the W. Do the Cards maybe come in a little overconfident for this against an Xavier team that, quite frankly, didn't look like they were ready to take us on?
Well, volleyball is one of the few matches where it's a little harder to get caught off guard for the whole match, right? It would be bad to come out flat and lose the first set because then you're playing from behind, but you do have a lot of time to catch up, unlike, say, um, I don't know, basically any other sport where if you come out flat and give up a couple of goals or give up a couple of touchdowns or some early runs in basketball, you could be in trouble. In volleyball, if you come out and you look a little flat, you kind of just have some time to collect yourself. Xavier hasn't been great. Their 3 wins so far this season are all sweeps. They came against South Carolina State, SIUE, and Eastern Kentucky. So they're certainly not lighting the world on fire. 3-set loss to Loyola, the 3-2 win, like you mentioned, versus Lipscomb. And then 3-1 losses to both Charlotte and Colorado to open their season. It hasn't been great. This is their first home weekend, so the crowd probably excited to see them. But as long as Louisville can focus on tonight's match and not get themselves looking ahead too much to Kentucky and later on Nebraska, that they should be able to take care of business here against Xavier. Just to follow up too about the blocking, Louisville currently on pace at 3.3%. So a lot of work to do in the ACC and the remaining couple of preseason or non-conference matches to challenge BYU's 3.85 for sure.
Yeah, 3.3 blocks per set pace would put us in 7th place in the overall record books. So yeah, it's a little bit of climbing to do. There's 6 teams from 2nd to 6th that are between 3.31 and 3.4 in the record books. One of those is Louisville from last year, by the way. So
break our own.
Right. We're currently have the 3rd place spot in that record.
I think what, like Jeff had mentioned, one of the surprising things from Louisville has been the pretty stellar defense. Louisville's only got, or they had 56 digs last night. I mean, both of these teams were very efficient in putting the ball in play. They finished with only a combined 13 errors when you take out the blocks. So everyone was putting the ball in court, forcing the defense to react, and Louisville played very well to do that. Elena Scott taking control of that libero role. It's definitely good to see, in addition to that, Anna DeBeer getting a lot of digs, getting back on defense. Tori Dilfer able to make plays when they're attacking the setter. She finished with 12 digs and still managed to put up 34 assists on Louisville's 39 kills, or out of Louisville's 34 assists. And then Elena Scott getting 4 of the other 5. So really filling in that role when Tori's taken out of the offense on the first hit. So it's definitely been good. And then again with the serving, still negative on the ratio, but 5 aces compared to 7 errors. And then Purdue had only one ace and 6 errors, so Louisville wins that battle 11-8 on service points. So it's definitely good. They're playing very well-rounded volleyball, and showing that not only can they hang with these top 10 teams, but they deserve to be in the top 10 and ranked like they are.
So let's go ahead and kind of.
A couple quick points, if you don't mind, real quickly.
I was going to bounce to you, Jeff, and say, what are your keys for a win? But go ahead with your.
Yeah, I want to say Casey has some great points in his analysis of the stats there. Casey's always very good with analyzing the stats. Call out a little bit subjectively. One of the things I saw last night on the hitting and the hitting errors, I saw like Iko Jones went up and sailed a couple long or wide. But I think what was happening there was she was expecting Purdue's block, and it didn't appear at all. So she was expecting to tool it off the block, and there was no block there whatsoever. So it sails long. So like that probably would have been a kill, but the block just didn't show up, and so it just sailed long. But yeah, the defense is great, and yeah, I love that you called out where Tori gets taken out of the offense if they hit the ball where Tori has to dig it, then somebody else has to take the set. And I'll call out that we've got 3 players on the court on a routine basis that are quite capable of setting. Tori, obviously. Elena Scott played setter position in high school. She actually moved over to a defensive specials libero role when she came here this year. And Iko Jones has done some setting in her past in Jamaica on the national team down there. So we've got 3 players out there that can set the ball quite well, and several others that are able to accomplish getting the ball to a decent attacking position. So, yeah, some great possibilities there. So,
The Cards look to move to 8-0 then again
mhm.
against Xavier. But Jared, let's take a look past the Xavier game, because next week over at the L&N Federal Credit Union, 2 high-profile, high-quality, 2 currently top 10 programs come in here to face us when Kentucky comes in on Wednesday and Nebraska comes in on Saturday, as the Cards jump out of a hopefully 2-game winning streak here up in Cincinnati and come home. But boy, I tell you what, quality opponents indeed.
Yeah, we've looking forward to Wednesday. We've always had a tough time with UK, even in some of our better years. So this is one that you're certainly hopeful we'll be able to jump on them early and kind of ride the crowd and the home court advantage feel to keep pushing forward. I think it's going to be a little worrisome now that Kentucky's fresh off a couple recent losses, even though one of them was to number 2 Wisconsin, I believe is what Jeff said. So it's they're going to be looking to bounce back themselves while we're assuming that we win today, kind of feeling pretty good, going undefeated in that match. So I think we need to take that one just point by point and really focus on it and work with our strengths with the blocks and see if we can't kind of knock Kentucky out of system early.
And that would be one of the keys, is to get Kentucky a little bit uncomfortable and a little bit out of their game plan. But it sounds like and seems like a couple of other squads have been able to do that to the Cats this year. Certainly we know that the LNFCU will be loud and rocking and rolling in there, Jeff. It should be just a fun atmosphere for college volleyball.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, LNFC arena is not the biggest volleyball arena around, but it's a fun one. You're close on top of the court. Great action, and man, with that many people, you pack that many people in there, it's going to be loud. It's also going to be warm, so dress in shorts. But
Yeah, the warm weather's coming back next week. I think it's
warm
supposed to
weather's
be in
coming
the
back.
88 or something like that Wednesday.
And the air conditioning in there was inadequate to begin with, and then they expanded it and didn't expand the air conditioning. So it's going to be warm. So be ready for that.
In fairness to the HVAC designers, that's a basement gymnasium. It's a little tough to condition.
It is tough. Yeah. But yeah, it should be a lot of it. Should be an amazing game. Both these teams are very, very good right now. A little unclear how good Kentucky really is, having watched them. Obviously, they got knocked off by an unranked Creighton. And then they also lost yesterday to number 2 Wisconsin. So, who knows? Creighton then also goes in and gets just run over by Nebraska in the next game after beating Kentucky. So, early season rankings and early season judgments of teams are always hard to make. So, it's hard to know. Kentucky is off from what they were from their national championship last year. We do know that they're not quite as good as they were then. They lost several players. They've got some great players back, but we'll see. We're still kind of getting the feel for that team.
And when at approximately 6:30 tonight, as the Cards look to go to 8-0. Let's go ahead and leave Ohio, come back across the bridge, and head back down to Floyd Street, where there were the volleyball being the first results we got in yesterday. Let's go to field hockey next, and at, of course, Traeger Stadium, down there where the Cards were involved in the Battle of the Border against, no, not Tennessee, IU, the Indiana Hoosiers, coming in, another Big Ten school, as field hockey was coming out, looking to remain perfect on the season and hoping to get a win. Our own Jared Anderson was out there taking some photos, conducting post-game interviews as well. he put in some time frame on that. Jared, it was a great celebration. This was a hard fought one against the Hoosiers. 1-0. People think, oh, that had to be boring. This was far from it, though, wasn't it, sir?
It's a strong defensive battle for sure. Indiana uh, hasn't really allowed a lot of goals this year. I think a majority of their goals came in their one loss earlier this season, and everything else has been uh, given up no goals, one goal here and there. So we knew it was going to be a tough one going in with them. And even though they're not ranked, Big Ten teams when it comes to field hockey are definitely very tough and hard to beat. I'm looking at, I think, kind of the history with Indiana. We've kind of dominated that series, if I've gathered correctly.
Yeah, in recent
Um,
years we have. Yeah, it's been a while since I used beat us.
which is promising for us. And when you've got a top five or whatever the coaches poll wants to put us at right now, kind of unfairly, if you ask me, but a top five program, you expect to beat just about anybody that you welcome, at least to your home stadium. So when you're bringing in an unranked IU team, uh, you should expect to win well. And it was definitely, as you mentioned, defensive battle. And I only got to see the second half, so I did miss the goal, but it looked like it came off a corner there early on in the first quarter. And I know how much Sowery's really pushed and emphasized the importance of capitalizing on your opportunities with penalty corners. And it's really paid off a lot more this year. I think uh, a handful of our goals have come off penalty corners, even though that percentage of goals off those corners hasn't been high. Um, Solid performance by Mila and goal keep, and then just the overall defense keeping Indiana out of the cage, and then kind of even keeping them away from that inner semicircle as well. But it definitely came down the stretch, and Coach Sari wasn't all too pleased with her offense and the overall performance on this one. So you hope maybe that they weren't looking ahead too much to Liberty on Sunday, who is an excellent team and I believe made the NCAA tournament last year. But you're going to need to score more than one goal against Liberty on Sunday.
I've got a feeling you're correct on that, sir. Liberty actually ranked very high in the RPIs so far for the NCAA Division One field hockey as well. So certainly a program that has come on in recent years and is playing very, very good field hockey. The Cards, just as you mentioned, and we'll go into this just a little bit more, had been trying to make an emphasis of doing well and scoring on penalty corners. Coach Sarah said there's plenty to do there. There's stuff to do and plenty to learn there. But they did get one on their first attempt of a penalty corner. Allie Billing, of course, who normally sends the inbounds pass in. This time it was Mackenzie Carl with the stop, and then Philippa Lieber with the goal to give the Cards a 1-0 lead and the only goal that they would need in this contest. Case, IU was a team that it really employed the press pretty heavily on Louisville. It wasn't something that they were really that used to, from what we could tell in the action on this one. But the Cards got some other corner opportunities, weren't able to score on them. 1-0's a win. We'll take it. They live to fight another day. And the team is now 5-0. So you can't cry too much about a W, can you?
No, you can't. But like you've mentioned, Coach Sowry was, I think, rightfully disappointed in the offense. Yes, Indiana got forward a lot. They like to press up high, but that just gives you all kinds of opportunity to get in behind them in a way that you would have thought Louisville's fast-paced offense that we've seen so far this season would have been able to do. They did only end up with 4 corners. Indiana had 6. The two teams ended with the same number of shots thanks to Indiana's just feverish third quarter. But Louisville's offense was just not there, not in the way that we've seen so far this season. Like I mentioned in the article, it's good to score and convert on a penalty corner the way that they did to open the game that way. But this press was not something they were accustomed to. Like you just mentioned, and like Coach Sowry mentioned specifically in her post-game interview, they hadn't seen it in quite some time, and she said they were just unable to problem solve. Whether that we is her and the coaching staff and the team, or just the players on the field, tough to say. Hard to say exactly what she meant there, but they weren't able to connect, as she said, get the ball forward get in behind IU and exploit the openings in the defense. She also said that they were pretty sloppy defensively. So I think that she's very happy to escape this game with a win. If you would have lost this game against IU, it would have been rather disappointing. But like she said, a lot to learn and not a lot of time to learn it as you've got another top 15 fringe top 10 matchup against Liberty tomorrow on short order.
Jeff, it was kind of a milestone in a way with this win as head coach Justine Sauer got her 200th career coaching win in the shutout. Justine, a great story, who was originally at Louisville as an assistant coach under Pam Buston. When Pam decided that she needed to go to a conference that was a little better in field hockey than what the Cards were in, she bolted for Duke and the ACC. And Coach Sauer, who had left for a couple years to go to UMass, if I remember correctly, Jeff, was called back in, took the program back over, and we've certainly had some very good hockey down on Floyd Street since Coach Sauer came back in. You think of some of the names that we've had over the years. Aisha McFerrin, arguably one of the best goalkeepers in the world. Of course, Meche Mercedes Pastor. Who can forget the thrills and excitement that she's given the Cardinals? But this is a team that isn't really concentrating so much, Jeff, on one player, but getting it done this year with a team effort. And that, to me, really speaks a lot, especially for a freshman goalkeeper, too.
Yeah, absolutely. Great goalkeeper coming in from the Netherlands. Obviously, the Netherlands is a really great country for field hockey. They do a lot of really great field hockey there. So always love seeing those players come in. 200th win for Coach Sauer, who continues to look great in a ball cap. So
She does indeed.
Yeah.
And I'll never mention that again.
That's right. That's obviously it's a great milestone. 200 wins is a big one. It is an interesting story. Buston going to Duke and then Louisville later joining the ACC. So now it's a regular matchup. Kind of master and apprentice type of matchup there. So it's a great story. It's always fun, and I know you always love talking to Coach Buston too when you get the opportunity. So
Yeah, absolutely.
great situation. It is such an amazing conference for field hockey. It's brutal. It's eat each other up, but it is amazing. It's great. It's a lot of fun. Some wonderful folks. It's the opportunity to see some of the best field hockey around. It's exciting.
This year, I think we're seeing not so much an ACC dominance in field hockey. When you take a look at the top teams in D1 field hockey, Michigan is up there very high. Iowa is up there very high. Certainly Northwestern, I think, is a top 5 team as well, or very close to it. The Cards actually dropped one in their rating case. Explain this one to me after winning 2 up at Princeton against Penn and Princeton. They went from 5th to 6th in the poll. Kind of unusual, I would think, but the Big Ten is definitely coming on stronger than they've come on in a long time in women's field hockey, and certainly the Cards. I still think the ACC is the best conference, but right now, if you were to ask, obviously the coaches and some others out there, the Big Ten has really come in here and said, "Hey, guess what? Don't ignore us. We're at the door."
I think that ACC still has that top to bottom dominance, right? If you played an ACC Big Ten matchup every season and put all those teams together like you do in, say, basketball, the ACC probably wins that series. But the top of the Big Ten is certainly challenging the top of the ACC now for sure. It has parallels to when UConn started to slip in basketball a little bit, right? They lose one championship game, and then all of a sudden everybody's like, well, it turns out you can beat UConn. Maybe you don't have to join them. And now we've seen that they're still an incredibly good team, but there's other teams at the top that can compete with them. It's the same thing in the conference standings for field hockey. The ACC at the top, they win a lot of championships, they win a lot of games, and then all of a sudden, some other teams sneak in there and start to knock off some of the top ACC teams, and other players around the country see that, and they're like, well, maybe I don't have to go to, the southeastern United States or to the Northeast, to Boston College or Syracuse to have success in field hockey. I can stay closer to home in the Midwest or something like that. I don't have to go to one of these type of institutions to compete, and so that kind of balances out the power a little bit throughout the country, and I think that's what we're seeing, and now it's exciting. Louisville is still forcing themselves to be one of the top recruiters nationally and internationally, and ACC field hockey being a little bit more balanced with the rest of the country is only good for Louisville, in my opinion. It means that you need to succeed more in conference play. You might not get 6 of 7 teams into the NCAA tournament, but it means that Louisville can build a lot more confidence against the ACC and against non-ACC opponents in their non-conference play. As we've seen, most of their non-conference games this season are against top 25, top 15 type teams.
And the Cards will return to action again on Sunday as they bring in Liberty. The Flames come to town. Admission, of course, always free at the Traeger. This is a 1 p.m. matchup up there. If you can't get to Traeger to watch this one, it's on the ACC Network Extra on Sunday. A non-conference match, obviously, for the Cards, but Jared, I think one that they cannot afford to ignore or overlook.
No, when you get to non-conference, and it's a tough non-conference schedule, which Sari does an excellent job each year. But you've got to win your non-conference games, just because the fact of being in the ACC, it's near impossible to have an undefeated conference record. You're going to lose to somebody at some point. So the more wins you can pick up on the side, especially against other ranked opponents, it will just help increase your RPI and keep you higher in the rankings, because field hockey has such a small field when it comes to NCAA tournament, and you take out the automatic qualifiers, there's so few at large bids that you need every win that you can get, and every ranked win is crucial.
So good things for the Cards there. Let's hope that they can defeat Liberty on Sunday. Let's go just a little further south on Floyd Street now, where the Louisville women's soccer team was bringing in number 16 Michigan into, of course, beautiful Lynn Stadium for a match there. And after 110 minutes of pretty fierce action here, Case, it was still a tie. The Cards go 1-1 against the Michigan Wolverines. They go to 4-1-1 on the year, and I was proud of the effort, despite I know that you're not a big fan of draws. Nobody really likes them that much, but the Cards really withstood a very strong Michigan attack, I think, to get this draw.
Yeah, I don't mind draws. I hate the draw scenario in college soccer. That's a struggle. It's a little bit concerning. Obviously, this was against a top 25 team. I think we all kind of tallied this one up as probably a loss when we looked at our non-conference records here. So a draw is a good result against this team, especially since Louisville hasn't looked like world beaters this season. They looked much more ready offensively than we expected them to start this season. They scored 13 goals in their first 3 games since then. At St. Louis, home against Western Kentucky, and then this home match against Michigan, they've scored 2 goals in 3 matches. The offense has kind of dried up a little bit inexplicably. Against Western Kentucky, they still got a lot of shots, just got a little bit unlucky, couldn't put so many on frame, and weren't able to find the back of the net. But against St. Louis, both teams finished with 10. And then against Michigan, like we talked about briefly, the Wolverines put up 24 shots. Louisville's lucky that a lot of those were off target. Some of those were as literally on frame as you can be. And the Cards were saved by the woodwork. Louisville wasn't far from giving up a bunch of goals in this game. And they weren't there to answer. Louisville finished with a total of 6 shots, 4 on frame. So the Casey Whitfield, who is a former Cardinal herself, one of the announcers on the ACC network for Louisville home games this season, she mentioned that Louisville was going to have to counterattack. That was going to be their best chance with as many players as Michigan gets forward. And Louisville just wasn't really able to do that a ton. They did get the goal by Nina Nicosia to tie it up. Didn't get deflated right after the goal by Michigan. So they were able to make it count once, but it just offensively, they weren't there. They got no corner kicks in the match. Michigan was able to get 6. It just, it was a struggle. It was a struggle for Louisville offensively. The defense managed to hold by the skin of their teeth. Michigan had a ton of searching crosses. They were able to get in behind the outside wingbacks, which have still been a problem for Louisville at this stage. They were able to get in behind and send the ball around the outside. Fortunately, Raven Alexander's back. She helped a little bit, but that was still a big struggle for Louisville. And, it's hard to be too down on them. This is, like I mentioned, Michigan's a good team. Louisville's performing better than we expected, but this was just a lucky draw. And you take it and you'll move on. It's better than the disappointing loss that they had to Western Kentucky earlier in the week. But they need to find whatever mojo they had earlier on in the season on offense for sure.
Indeed, they do. I would think that the scoring needs to come back up, but boy, scoring in this game was bang, bang. You got a score in the 19th minute of the action, and then 2 minutes later, the Cards responded with their score. Nina Nicosia getting the open, finding herself getting the non-assisted goal on that. Jeff, when you take a look at this Louisville soccer team, women's soccer team, certainly some tough tests ahead for them in the ACC, but I think you've got to maybe take a moral victory out of this one. And as a team, you kind of talk to yourselves and look at yourselves and say, hey, we were hung in there with a top 20 opponent. They didn't beat us. Things look pretty good for us down the road. What do you think?
Yeah, talking about moral victories is a surefire way to get coaches mad at you. But
that's true.
But yes, you're playing against a very good team. You get a point off of them in the overall standings. That's not bad. You got to take a little bit of bolster and say, okay, yeah, we're playing with some pretty competitive teams here. If you're going to take the long term view of continued improvement of the program, that's a good sign. I'm not so good at analyzing soccer, but it seems like things seem a little better now than they have been in the past. So continued slow improvement, continuous improvement, right? Engineering folks are all over that. So
yeah,
the Cards case will get a couple of days off here before they return to action. They will go up against Miami of Florida, not Ohio, on Friday, 7 p.m. Some of the things you think Justine Sowry will take out of, or excuse me, Karen Ferguson Days will take out of this one as she gets ready to take on a better than average ACC opponent, Miami.
Yeah, well, I think she'll take out some of the things we've already talked about. They have to find their offense again. They still have a problem at the outside back position. I mean, you've gotten to this point. They've only allowed, what is that, 7 goals on the season, which is not that many, but a lot of those are coming, and a lot of the shots and opportunities that teams aren't scoring are coming from situations where Louisville's outside backs have been beaten. You have to solve that problem because teams like Florida State, teams like Virginia and North Carolina, they're not going to make those mistakes. That they're gonna capitalize on every opportunity you give them at that stage. So those are the 2 things Louisville has to figure out. They have to get their midfield back into winning the ball more often to get it forward, and they've got to figure out that outside back position. And I think that the goals will come when they can sort out the back a little bit more and get through the midfield. Miami, Louisville has owned that series recently. They've won the last, I think, 3 seasons. So they've got 2 3-0 wins and a 1-0 win over the last 3 years. Miami this season, if I can pull them up, a little bit behind. Oh, of course, takes me to their main page. Miami this season has gone Is that women's? Doesn't tell me. Yeah, they've gone 3-2 so far this year. They drew Florida Gulf Coast in an exhibition to start the year. They actually played 3 exhibitions, so they got a draw with Florida Gulf Coast, a loss to UCF, and a win over Barry. Never heard of them. Their wins this season actually come against FAU and Florida, with losses, and FIU. So interestingly, they win all their games that are in their state, that are against teams from in their state, and their losses come against Lipscomb and Missouri. So that is weird so far. They are playing tomorrow against USF. So if their trend holds, they may be 4-2 by the time they play Louisville on Friday. But they haven't been terribly impressive. They've scored 5 goals this season. They've given up 3. They've not had any games where both teams have scored. all 5 games have been shutouts for one team or the other. So I think if Louisville can play their game and they can solve some of the problems, or at least make modest improvement, like Jeff mentioned, incremental improvement towards fixing some of those problems, I think Louisville should be able to handle Miami in this one.
And of course, when you speak of Barry, it's important to denote which campus you're speaking of when you speak of Barry. Is it the blue campus, the strawberry campus, the blackberry, or the very popular raspberry campus where the fans are pretty unruly? Gerald, when we looked at this team preseason, we saw, well, Delaney Snyder, one that's certainly going to step up, give us some key minutes, do some very, very good things for us out there. We also took a look at some of the other players that were back from last year, and I certainly think one of those was Taylor Kerwin to come in and do some stuff. But it's been kind of a conglomeration of everybody out there getting it done, and especially the youth and the freshmen on the team.
The freshmen have certainly looked great and don't really play like freshmen out there, especially the response yesterday, being able to turn around as soon as you gave up a goal to Michigan, to turn around, go down the field and score, just shows a lot of maturity. And I think that's part of your leadership when you have experienced players like 6-year Gabby Cazellas in goal and chewing her team out for not doing what they need to do. And Sarah Hernandez, Maisie Whitsted, and Taylor Kerwin, they've all been there for a while. They understand the situation. You can't sit back and mope because you just gave up a goal against a top 25 team. They really pushed down. And it's really been great for the freshmen, and also the addition of Amina Ekic as a volunteer assistant, and just her being able to relate more to the players, having just finished her time at UofL and been like, here's what worked for me in my experience here, and here's what's working for me in my time with Racing Louisville right now. Let's do this. And so she's bringing a whole new aspect to the game that the coaches may not always be able to provide. But they've looked really solid when you can take away from some of the injuries that we've had. We've had Delaney Snyder out multiple games due to an ankle issue, and Raven has been out. Raven Alexander's missed a good portion of the season with her injury, so it's nice to see her get back out there. So you've kind of thrown freshmen out there a little bit more than maybe you were anticipating, just due to some of the injuries with your upperclassmen. So it's forced them to mature and develop quicker than we would have anticipated this early in the year, but I think it is paying off pretty well.
I think it is indeed. You can't complain too much about 4-1-1. I don't think you can at all. This hour has flown by for us so far here as we go into our last couple of minutes. I always kind of like to end with some final thoughts from the guys. And Jared, you've been resting your legs all show, so you should be good and strong to go ahead and start us out with final thoughts.
Yeah, just excited to have more sports going on, and we'll see how much just the full day's worth of football later on tonight is going to kill me, as I've at least got through all the field hockey photos last night, and during the show I just finished up the rest of women's soccer, so hit men's soccer and get that out of the way before heading over tonight, because that's a lot of work and a lot of hours behind the scenes with going through photos and deleting stuff, editing stuff, uploading, and then obviously getting it distributed to everybody so we can get those posted. So it's a lot of work. I love doing it, but it's certainly an exhausting job to do.
Indeed it is, but a most appreciated job by everybody who benefits and get from your work on it for sure. We do all appreciate it so much.
It's like
Case, final thoughts?
Yeah, I was just looking at an announcement from earlier in the week um, about women's tennis and the preseason national rankings coming out. Um, Andrea De Palma ranked number 115 in singles. She's a sophomore from Argentina. And then Rhea Verma, she's playing with in doubles, and their pair is ranked number 16 in the country. So Louisville pretty top heavy on the tennis side. If they can come around to bringing up the lower half of that team too, then they may start to see success. Like we've talked about with soccer, incremental improvement over the years. Tennis is stepping up a little bit to that competition in the ACC, playing well in non-conference, and then falling off a bit once they hit conference play. But hopefully they can ride some of this wave into some success going forward.
Mark Beckham doing a great job down there as the women's tennis coach, and also has staffed his roster quite well with transfers from other schools too. So if you can't find a home, Louisville will provide one for you. I guess is women's tennis's philosophy. Jeff, final thoughts?
But not in any non-compliant NCAA ways. They will not provide homes.
Gotta throw that one in for
Just
the
in case any NCAA people are listening.
Yeah, good luck there.
Yeah, so several a quick rundown of several matches beyond Louisville that are of interest in across the league today. In volleyball, we got Nebraska, number 3 Nebraska versus number 20 Utah. None of these, by the way, are guaranteed wins for the better ranked team. Number 3 Nebraska versus number 20 Utah. Number 8 Kentucky versus unranked Marquette that we talked about previously. Never overlook Marquette. And number 7, Florida versus number 17, Baylor. Baylor beat Florida last night. They play again today. They're doing a doubleheader in Gainesville. So interesting one there. It's a great win by Baylor over a pretty darn good Florida team. So all have potential rankings implications for us.
Jeff's in his strong season right now, and he's enjoying every minute of it.
Absolutely.
To you. As far as I go, final thoughts. Just kind of a reminder to you that 20 years ago today, on September 11th, our nation was rocked and unfortunately set up by a very, very damaging, hurtful, and life-costing terrorist attack. Uh, Most people my age, or even yet a bit younger, remember where they were on that fateful day. One of the things that I do remember is after that day, for a several month period, our nation was united and banded together as one to restore our faith in what we're doing and the way of our life here in the United States. Fast forward to 20 years later, we've got some divisions, we've got some splits, we've got some people divided on various issues that are going on in our society and world right now. But let us never forget that a lot of people, a lot of good people gave their lives for us 20 years ago. And certainly try to keep that in your thoughts today as you go through December 11th. And other than that, we'll certainly catch you back here next week for another exciting edition of the Cardinal Couple Radio Hour podcast, unless you know something we don't. Until then, we'll see you later. Go Cards.